Well, welcome back. Welcome back to episode 8 of the RTF Resilience and Trauma Fitness podcast. I'm your host and whacked Bodie Wallace. Well, there I go. And I have a special guest here, Jill, who is just, I would say she needs no introduction, but I will let her tell you who she is and some of that. Uh, and yeah, so let's get into it. Jill, just welcome to RTF and thanks for being here. I really appreciate you, and I can't thank you enough.
Well, thank you so much for having me. My name is Jill, and I'm from Tennessee. I've been in Texas now for about 8 years, but I grew up here in Bedford, coming here every summer to visit my grandparents, which my grandmother Nadine taught second and third grade at Arlington Elementary and retired from there. And my grandfather Sam was a pilot in World War II. And he wrote books on how to fly helicopters for Bell Helicopter here in Texas. And when he would get off work in the evenings, he would go and work for ABS, which is America's Breeder Service for cattle. So he would come home, change into his coveralls out of his suit, and he would do it just right in the living room. And we just thought it was so funny when we were little. And as we got older, of course, he stopped doing that. But he would just slip on his coveralls and basically fire up the truck and say, "Who wants to go? Got to go to this ranch today and breed a couple of cows." And so we would ride with him. And that turned out to be one of the most wonderful experiences of my life, is watching excuse me, him just, he was a pilot in World War II. He received the Distinguished Flying Cross twice for flying in and picking up the wounded soldiers during combat. So he was so an American hero and just he loved his cows. And so before he ever was a pilot, when he was in high school, my great grandmother, who I also share a birthday with, she didn't have a refrigerator yet. So Sam went and bought a cow, tied it up out back, milked it, sold the milk, and bought my great grandmother her very first refrigerator.
Oh,
And
wow.
so that's just the kind of guy he was. He could fly into combat and pick guys up and fly out and everybody survive, or you know, he's buying his mother's her first refrigerator. So having that as an example of grandparents, was just beautiful.
Oh man, gosh, so wasn't that the greatest generation? I mean, that's what they're
It
known for. But
truly, truly. And, he just, the funniest thing was just listening to him, because he loved to talk and he loved to tell stories. And everything he had to say was just brilliant. So you didn't want to miss it. And even as a kid, I caught that. But the funniest thing is when he would talk about compound interest, but he would not pronounce it that way. He would it was compound interest. And it took me, as a child, a little bit to figure out exactly what he was talking about. But hey, in my first job at Liberty Mutual Insurance, you get into the 401ks, you start looking at benefit packages, and I could hear him in the background. Get in it, get as far in it as you can, save as much as you can, because that's the best way to double, triple, multiply your money, is get in there and get in there young. And just
uh,
valuable lessons, just valuable lessons.
we talk about grandparents, and I'll tell you, wow, I had some amazing grandparents, and one of the things that most people wouldn't know, they might be looking at this and going like, well, what is her deal? Is she a first responder? Is she like a veteran? What's the deal there? Well, there's a little more to the story, and you'll see that as we kind of go on. But one of the things is that we share is some familial connection to some of these World War II heroes. Um, you want to speak to that for a second?
Yes. Well, first of all, excuse me, our family is Choctaw. So even though I obviously don't look Choctaw, and Choctaws are known, Oklahoma's known for the Sooners. So there are a lot of first, and there is a lot of bravery that goes with that. And in our family, we have a lot of firsts because our family was, walked the Trail of Tears from the state of Missouri to Oklahoma. And Eula, our great great grandmother, her family actually traveled the Trail of Tears and made it to Oklahoma. And Eula ended up having a son that is, well, he was in the very first group of frogmen. So he was a Navy SEAL as well. So the family made the trek as Choctaw Indians. So that's special within itself. But then to have one of her children, one of her sons, now keep in mind, Eula was a single parent of four children, and this was, a long time ago. And her husband was shot and killed working as a security guard on New Year's Eve, guarding a warehouse that probably was empty and may not have had anything in it. But some guys just thought, hey, if it's worth guarding, there must be something in there worth getting. And so he lost his life at 36 years old. And still, Eula did a beautiful job raising four children, one of them being my grandmother. I'm named after, I'm thankful to say. And I'm Jill. She had a brother named Jack. The Jack and Jill jokes went on, and it was just hilarious until my granny finally started going by Nadine. But Jack being one of the first frogmen, who would have thought in the government, just one day he's working and they just said, hey, who can swim? And they call him and he's like, hey, I can swim. I'm a good swimmer. So he volunteers. He doesn't know really what he's volunteering for. It's just an experiment. They really don't know, is it going to work? But we're going to try to take this team of guys and really work on some expertise, special, let's just see
Op-
what we can do.
Special.
And special ops are born, or they, I'm sure they were born before that, but this is when they started focusing on a SEAL team frogman mentality. And the guys that they just started training, my favorite picture is the very first picture that they took, because these guys just look like a bunch of farm hands standing on the edge of a pond. And if there wouldn't have been a big boat going behind Jack's head in the picture, you wouldn't have been able to tell it was the ocean. And he was like, they didn't have us get in our dresses, dress whites. They didn't have us, we were just, they just literally stopped us from work and had us pose for this historical picture. And that was the very first picture. And so, of course, everything's evolved on from there. And now they have, whenever someone's in trouble in the military, I mean, who do they call? They call the Navy SEALs, they call Black Ops, they call so many teams that are specialized in so many different areas that I just thank God I live in the United States of America. I just thank God that, they did an experiment, because the people's lives that have been saved by Navy SEALs is just
Yeah,
countless.
yeah. Those we need to actually, absolutely at every turn, as first responders, as civilians, to thank our veterans. I'm not a veteran. I wanted to be a veteran, and I wanted to go in the military. That's another story for another day. But yeah, it we're absolutely indebted to them, and they are us, right? They're civilians too, and without their service, I mean, just like right? I mean,
And they're so intelligent. That's what just blows my mind. I love listening. Every Navy SEAL, every time I hear one come on the any news broadcast, I just stop what I'm doing to listen because they're so brilliant in their own ways. They're not just trained for one thing, and they're humble and they're kind, and there's so many things. Like, here's one, Jonathan Gillum, Sheep No More.
yeah,
This book is for the average person, just to protect yourself. As a Navy SEAL, he's also been in the FBI. He was also a policeman. He's just, Navy SEALs was just one of his many trades that he, played with. And so this gentleman is so highly intelligent, and he teaches us everyday people, when you're going to the grocery store, watch, look around. Is there someone watching you unload your groceries? Are they watching you put your buggy up?
right.
Just to pay attention to who's driving by your house. Is there someone parking? Are they leaving the car? Are they sitting in the car? You don't want to be that nosy neighbor, but at the same time, you have to notice.
You don't want to be a sheep.
That's exactly the point of his book, is just teaching basic self preservation.
Yeah,
And
yeah. We get in as I don't know how many first responders. You probably know quite a few, but when just over time working on the streets, doing what we were doing on the fire department, um, you get you get like several levels of vigilance and self-preservation, sort of like awareness of situational awareness, but also just in general, like when you're living with other people in a close quarters, like they do in the military. You're trained. You're always watching, and then I would come home, and I would notice my family has no idea about that, right? Like they're just like doo doo doo, going on about that, and they just couldn't. I mean, I'm like looking and watching, and I'm like, no, like there's reasons why we got to stay aware. So that's a really good point, and I really appreciate you bringing up Jonathan Gilliam's book, because that is something that I haven't read yet, and I love that the common person can, we can learn those acts of self-preservation, because we will be sheep no more. There's no ifs, ands, and buts about it. We've been through a lot in the last lot of few years, and we just we
and,
know
and
we
who
know
better
this.
to learn from than the best?
Yeah, yeah. So there's absolutely amazing skill and passion and bravery and dexterity with these guys that do this, and I am thankful that they have not watered down, if you know what I mean, the SEAL teams,
Mhm.
with and I don't think I need to go there, but you know what I mean. I'm just thankful that I just pray that we can get back to kind of like bringing those guys back and like defend our own border instead of going and fighting wars in other places for other people, for so
Yeah,
for
because
for
if
some reason.
you ask most military people, they don't want war. Most military people know what war brings. They know the heartache. They don't want to lose their brothers. There's so many different, you know, being and, having Jack be one of the first frogmen, I became just kind of I look at all frogmen and all Navy SEAL as family, and I watch these stories from my living room like every other, housewife does. And the only difference is, one of them was my grandmother's brother. And so I look at these guys and I know they have families at home, and they have, wives. And, I don't know if you remember, the whole Free Eddie thing, Eddie Gallagher.
I
was,
do.
that's another Navy SEAL who triumphed. And, we actually, my husband and I sent him cards to jail saying, we hope they let you go because this is wrong. And, just because we felt like he was family. And, there's so many different situations that people go through in their life. And I don't know, I may or may not be supposed to talk about this, but Taya Kyle, who hasn't heard about American Sniper and this beautiful widow left with two children? Well,
Yeah.
she, has this movie and this book and all of this. And, there was a gentleman, and I don't want to say his name, but there was someone financially trying to take advantage of her. And, of course, she, the situation's been corrected, but even someone as big as her, and this is, you want to just say, really, you're going to sit here and this American hero's wife, you think you're going to be able to take advantage of her financially and get away with it? No.
Yeah.
Thank
Yeah.
goodness, but they still have the same trials and tribulations that every other individual has. And
Yeah.
the only difference is that they're sticking their neck out a lot further than we are.
On that, I think, it's someone like her, I mean, she never wanted that kind of fame. That is not something, I mean, she's so amazing. I've listened to her online. I don't know her like uh, like others do, but I just absolutely, kind of, this is the American story. I mean, we're talking keep they try to keep, very, undercover. Like if you know who they are, that's it's like they've totally gone public anyway. But if you're never going to know who these guys are.
Well,
Uh,
she basically kept her kids behind the scene until they became of age. And then she knew, they're going to have to get out and start living their own lives. And, and she is such a strong Christian woman that's what, you know, to God be the glory. And that's her message. And that's she gives God all of the credit for her and her children making it to where they are today. And to me, that's the most important story
yeah,
is, you know, it's not what happens to you in life, but how you respond to it. And
great
she
point.
responded with prayer and God walked her through it.
Yeah,
All of it. Uh,
and it's a lifelong walk too, isn't it?
Yes, it is. And we all have our struggles because people may look at me and think, oh well, why is he interviewing her, she's just a girl from Tennessee. Well, as far as first responders, I have nothing but total respect. My best friend in high school's dad was a fireman, so from when I was young he would come home and he would have awful experiences at work, and it was a really hard transition coming home to two teenage girls, which is what he had. And I learned a lot through watching her and them, and I had never had that experience until then. But you just have a whole new appreciation for what these people go through and what they put their lives on the line every day for us. Some people are out there genuinely getting hurt, some are not, some are out there just doing things they shouldn't be doing, putting other people in danger. But my personal thing that I have PTSD over is being raped in my apartment. And my main message I would like to put out there today for this podcast is anyone who lives on the top floor of an apartment now. I worked in insurance. I thought I knew. I was, grew up in a hunter family. I was ready to be single. I thought no roommates for me. I'm going to be safe. I'm going to be safe. I'm going to be on the top floor so nobody can get to me. And so they got to me through the attic square in my ceiling in my closet. And for over a year and a half, they came and went as they pleased. And finally, I woke up to my door open one day and I knew I didn't leave it open and went and had a rape kit, waited 10 years just to find out they lost it. So I'll never know who did that. And, you know, that for just a little girl working in insurance, that causes me PTSD, not knowing who, why, when, where, because the way I see it is if they've done it to me, they've done it to other people.
So,
So,
Jill, let me just for a second. I don't want to interrupt you, but I just want to
no,
rewind back to the part about the logistics of the thing in your apartment. There's a little bit more to that story about they would come in at night, apparently,
yes.
right?
So,
And
yeah,
and then spike your drink or something. Like
yes.
they were hiding and waiting for you in your apartment when you got home. How is that?
Well, that's where I suspected they had come through the attic square because I didn't ever hear them come through it unless it was, and they had to spike my drink to drug me because I would come home every day and fix a glass of iced tea or water. I didn't drink alcohol, so I know I wasn't getting drunk. And I worked two jobs, and I'm just thinking I'm tired. And so every day I would come home, of course, pull off the pantyhose, put on some sweatpants, watch some TV, get me something to drink. And something to drink was always first before I changed to my sweats just because I was thirsty. Little did I know, while I'm in there changing to my sweats, I have a two-bedroom apartment that I'm living in by myself. And all I can say is somewhere someone was hiding and coming in there, drugging my drink because I would sit there and fall asleep watching TV on the couch and then wake up in the bed and not remember walking to the bed. There were things in my apartment that would be moved that I knew I didn't leave moved because I was a neat freak. And I would write, oh, you're just tired. You just think you left that there, but really you left it here. And don't dismiss things that you think are out of place. Don't dismiss anything. If you think something's wrong, there's laboratories, there's places where you can go and have things tested. You can go to an emergency room to see if you've been drugged. I kept blaming it on being tired. And so my big message is watch those attic squares, seal them up because more people can just come and go from them.
Okay,
And
on that note, like so we got some first responders, let's say, that are watching this and they're going like, well, wait, how does somebody get in there? How do you know they were coming through the attic, or the attic access there? And but there was a little more there. You had some evidence that you saw, right?
yes, okay, so the sheetrock dust. They had a sheetrock square cut for the square in the attic. And in my closet, which I kept perfectly vacuumed, my girlfriend and I found sheetrock dust and we would vacuum it and then we would come home and find it again. And then we would
Mhm.
vacuum it and we would come home and find it again. But we couldn't prove anyone was coming and going. And when I would call the office, they would say, well, maybe the maintenance guy was up there and just accidentally thought, maybe he bumped it and it just, yeah, Well, then the two apartments across from me were almost always empty. There were no tenants in it, and so they're using it for a model at one time. And so I started thinking, okay, so it's either someone prying one of these empty apartment doors open and then coming up through the attic, or I believe it was that more than someone living there. I don't believe it was someone living there. I was
Okay.
I I'm just really, I had good neighbors. They didn't raise their voices. They had kids. They were married. I just didn't see them as doing that. Of course, anything's
Yeah,
possible, but I just didn't
yeah.
see that. I saw the empty apartment across from me as being the window of opportunity.
And this became sort of like I mean, you were kind of like, no, this can't be happening, right? I mean, was it kind of
Yeah,
denial? I mean, because this is you're
yes.
talking a year or something, right? This is going on for
This was
about
this the yeah, this was like a year and a half. Right before it was 2 years. When you work in insurance, you don't make, it's kind of like the military. You have great benefits, but you don't make a lot of money. And
yeah,
so, it was $2,000 to move. And so I got to thinking, okay, how can I do this? I'm already working two jobs. I can't do something more. So we had an employee referral program. And if you referred an employee, you received $500 after they stayed 6 months. So I did that 4 times until I had the money to move. And, it was really, really hard because coming from a family of hunters, I'm used to being, around people that have guns. And I'm crying to my daddy about this because my daddy's living in another state, and my brother, I'm crying to both of them saying, I don't know what to do and I can't prove this is happening. And my daddy, I asked him, I just said, can I please just have one of your guns, so I can try to protect myself? And he said, no. And I said, why? And he said, because if he's not, whoever is doing this, if they're not coming in with one, they're not going to use mine to finish you off. And I'm sorry, I know that sounds cold. He said, but they will take it from you. I'm sorry, you as confident as you feel, as much as you've grown up around this, a grown man will overcome you and take it from you. And I can't, not with my gun. And so, it just, here, I mean, I know policemen, I know everyone in Memphis. I'm like just
let me.
afraid to,
I'm sorry.
no,
I gotta kind of interact. Would
yeah.
would he have been? Would he have said that to you because he knew you didn't have some kind of training or experience with it, or was it like you did have some experience with guns and stuff? You want to like what was his reason for saying something like that?
My daddy's reason was the element of surprise. He said that's what he has on you. Because if you knew anything, you could report it to the police. You could have someone out there. You could have someone waiting for them to come through the attic hole if you knew that's where they were coming in. He said, but whatever, this person has put so much thought into this that it's the element of surprise. And
Okay.
that's where you'll lose because he'll have that.
Okay.
And so my daddy trusted my ability, but not to fight a man.
Yeah. And that is
I
you
mean,
know
you have daughters, and I think you can appreciate where he was coming
whoa.
from.
I absolutely would. I can absolutely. I mean, as protective as I am and the way I go about things, it's like I can't get them enough training. I can't get them enough, and they want to do it. But like where I live, they changed the law and it's like, well, you don't have to have that training now to do that. So there's not a lot of people that teach, you know, uh, how to carry a weapon, how to point it, how to pull it, how to point it, how to use it. So like, no, we need the training. We need that.
Yes, and there's a bunch of American Patriot girls that I am really good friends with, and they call it pew pew, like pew
Yeah,
pew, like you should, and they love their pew pew time, and they love going to the gun range. They love having target practice. Just getting comfortable with the kick of the gun because nobody ever knows when you're going to be in a situation like that, and all I can say is if you're on the top floor of an apartment, block the attic because that is an entryway. And, you know, if
yeah.
I can just keep one person from that happening too, that's it. And
Look
don't
at.
let them,
Go ahead. I'm sorry. I mean,
I was just saying, don't let them have the element of surprise on you because I was looking under beds, looking in closets. I was checking everything and they were coming through the attic.
So that brings up a really great point is the vectors, the different kind of places that people can come from, and the timing and how they can, they might be able to come through an area that you would think nobody could get through there.
Yeah, because
Or
I
I
was
would,
looking.
yeah, I would think, oh, I'll hear somebody coming through the attic, or I'll hear that, well, at 2 or 3 in the morning, when you're like, if you've got sleep apnea, or, you've got a CPAP machine, or, maybe you don't have that. Maybe you're young and you're like vigilant and you're looking, going to wake up. Some people wake up really easily, but, that in modern day now we have the ability to have the cameras and stuff around. And I know previously you telling me that you didn't, this was before they had cameras like that you could set up and things. But
Hmm.
it is a good idea to have these basics, kind of safety support systems at home, and to be thinking, like, hmm, like in my situation, for example, like I wouldn't be bugging out. I have to bug in because of the setup that I'm set up for in my crew, right? So I would be basically, bugging in, like, how am I gonna, XYZ, all those things. Where am I gonna be seeing somebody? Where are they gonna be coming from? How are they gonna be coming through? What if there's 5 or 10 of them? I mean, this is the game theory that you go through, and kind of like, it's just sort of like what if things. And not do that out of fear, but just do it out of knowledge and being prepared, and to defend my domicile. So, if we had, if we, we're gonna meet more times. I know you're gonna be on here. We've talked a lot already about, all the different kinds of topics and stuff, and we get into some family stuff. It's just crazy, but as it relates to like PTSD and anxiety, depression, and stuff, how this, because it's not limited to first responders and veterans, although I know it's going to be different for guys who've been in a war zone. It's not like, I'm sure it's not like what I went through as a working the streets, where I worked. Okay, it's going to be different, but the stories that I learned about with guys that I went to this recovery center, the COE, and our listeners are familiar with that. There is, like, everybody has their own story, and but it's like we're all kind of on a parallel path. We're all on the same path, maybe in different places along that path, and we're moving forward, and we're learning more. We're seeing, we're acknowledging and seeing and learning from others who've been on that path too. I mean, this is an education for me to sit here and listen to, you tell about these things. It's like I've got a guy's experience. I don't have a lady's experience about, like, what was it like, being single and living in a top floor apartment. I mean, these are things that are important, because we got different kinds of listeners here. And the point, I think, is that, like, as far as the message of, like, how can we, what are the kind of, like, the helpful things that you would say to somebody who's going through something like this, who maybe a woman maybe she's a firefighter, maybe she's a cop, and like, in today's day, I wouldn't trust anyone. If I was a cop, or on this work in the streets, I'd be like, you're looking over your shoulder constantly. So
Well, I don't trust many people. You have to kind of earn your trust with me, but I'm kind to everyone, because you can't let that make you bitter because you've been through that. But the biggest thing I can say that got me through it was thinking level headed and saying, not being in denial about it. Saying, okay, Jill, this is awful. And your worst nightmare that you never dreamed could possibly happen to you has happened. And okay, so now let's think level headed about it. Okay, so you have to get up and go to work every day. And there were days where I was crying and I was just like, okay, honey, It's just you, and you can do this. And so I basically would just get up, go to work, throw myself into my job, come home, and think, okay, I've got another long night, and what, dear Lord, is going to happen tonight? And you pray. And God, by the grace of God, I'm still sitting here. By the grace of God, I lived through it. By the grace of God, I'm able to separate it. And that's, you have to be honest about it. And then, as crazy as this sounds, you have to pretend like it never happened. You have to accept it and then just forget about it. And you can't carry it around with you. You can't wrestle with it every day. You can't live in fear. And that's where you, that's what makes you be able to put one foot in front of the other and keep going.
So would you say when you, I think I heard you say, forget about it.
But, or I'm saying put it in its proper place. You never want to not learn and learn your lessons from that,
Okay.
but you don't want to carry it around in your hands all day long.
Yeah.
You want to put it down in its proper place, wherever that is.
Okay. And that might be something that individually we struggle with trying to figure it out on our own. But
Because
when
we
you,
keep wanting to pick it back up.
well, because it's like we can't forget. It's like it's always there, but that doesn't
Right.
has to be like right here. It can be like it can be in the backpack if that we carry around every day, but it doesn't have to be 500 pounds.
Yeah,
Is
you just don't have to have it in your hands, but you don't ever the you don't really get a choice, I don't think, in carrying burdens like that. They're just with you. They're battle scars. You're a warrior that has a battle scar, and you live through it, and so you're victorious because you've lived through it, but you're still wounded, and you have to respect that. And at the same time, put it in your little, if you're an Indian, put it in your little leather pouch, and just, you know, whether it's a feather from a memory or whatever it is, and you have to pick yourself up and move on. And it's hard. It's very hard, and it's so hard that it's not easy to tell someone else how to do it, because everyone has to figure out their own way.
yes. Well, I wanted to, speak to that for a second. Like one thing I'd learned when I went to the recovery center, and and I want to encourage any brother or sister who's really having struggles, is to try to find a way to get some help. Uh,
Definitely.
and I know some brothers, and I'll talk about him in a minute. A good friend of mine who I met at the center, who's having a struggle right now. But one of the things that I remember them telling me when I got there was, hey, it's like this backpack that you got all this experience and this story. You've got all these things that have ever happened in your life. Some at work, some at when you were a kid, some at different times in your life, different relationships, different things that you've gone through, maybe some substance issues and things, depression, anxiety, all this PTSD, makeup. I said, when you get there, I said, you got all this big old jumbled up, and it's a big, all chaotic mess. And it's hard to sort through anything. It's when it's like spaghetti like that. But when you go and you start kind of like, taking the time to kind of like, pull one thing apart, and try to like figure out, okay, this is what this is. And you kind of name that. That's a big rock. That's a big thing. And then you go, okay, well, that's what that thing is. And oh, that makes sense. That's a puzzle piece right there. Okay, well, and you start taking these things apart, and you're looking, and it's like, oh, okay, now I understand why, I'm kind of been like I am. Like I can't figure this stuff out. My head's going crazy, and I've got, whatever. The point is that the recovery process, although it's lifelong, that initial kind of like, time frame when you're starting to kind of help or maybe you've got some help. Somebody's helping you kind of pull these things apart and look at what is what. And you can name these things and go like, yeah, okay, now I understand why I do things that way. Or now I understand why I respond, okay, that way to this situation. Then it starts to make sense. Like when I kind of put it back together, let's say, use the cordwood analogy, it was just a bunch of stuff, but now I'm starting to stack it in there, to where it fits. It fits better. It hasn't changed those events. It hasn't changed what happened, but my response to those really bad things that happened is the most important thing. I didn't
Oh, yeah.
I didn't have to be uh, I didn't have to be the bad person because my stuff in my backpack was bad. I just had to like kind of go through some of those things in the backpack, if you will. And I'm using the backpack analogy. I think everybody can get that. But I restructured some of that stuff. And I honestly don't know, and I'll stop with this. I honestly don't know how we can like go through the stuff in our backpack, so to speak, and kind of do the digging in the dirt, if you will, without Jesus. I don't know. Some guys are trying it, but I don't know how they do it.
Well, all I know is that everyone I've ever seen get a victory over whether it's alcohol, drugs, any kind of addiction, any kind of trauma, any kind of there's so many different traumas, but the by the grace of God, because we're not strong enough, and it's written in the Bible that we're not strong enough, and that by only by the grace of God can he carry us through these things. And I've had so many different things that have happened to me in my life, and one thing I like to say, my husband got hurt in a work injury and didn't get paid for a whole year. And I wasn't late on one house payment. And I, and people would look at me and they'd say, "Well, how did you do it?" And I said, "I didn't do it. It was by the grace of God," because we would sit there and literally a check would come in. And I would be like, "Thank you, Lord." And
Mm-hmm.
literally that happened for 12 months. And by the grace of God, we were never late on one payment. He didn't work for a year. I can't explain it. It's nothing I did. I'm not special. I'm just a person. And I I prayed about it. I prayed about it every day. And I asked God for help. And my biggest suggestion is to talk to him, and you don't have to go anywhere. You can stay right where you are and talk to the Lord Jesus Christ, and you can most importantly be thankful for everything, no matter how bad things are. Still be grateful and thankful, and that will bring good to you.
Yeah.
I believe
So,
that.
so absolutely 100% with you, Jill. And, I would, just this guy that I was talking to actually right before we started this today, he called me and he was telling me about his kind of like it is what it is, the reality of what he's going through right now. And I was like, I was listening to him and going through things, and I'm like, well, what about this and what about that? And it's just like one thing after another. It's like dead end, dead end, dead end. And I'm like, yeah, uh, like, and I was like, and I asked him about faith and faith-based organizations and churches around him and stuff, and he had something kind of negative to say about that. And his family is connected to churches and pastors and things. And he was like, they don't want to help me. They don't want to help me unless I'm a member of their church. And I was like, okay, you've served and you've worked in public service as a first responder, and you've done, I mean, I know the laundry list of the stuff he's done. He's a paramedic, and I mean, I want to tell you about him, but he asked me not to say his name and stuff, so I'm obviously absolutely wouldn't do that. But I was just wanted to encourage him that, it's like, I don't know why the Lord is doing this right now and why He has you going through this trial, but there is hope. There is hope, and there is, but it's not in this religious thing that people are talking about. It's not this, this religion, whatever. Okay, it's a personal relationship with Jesus Himself, and
And that's it.
that's a very personal thing, and it's something you can't, like, oh yeah, you just need to get to know Jesus. Well, right, well, that's not as easy as it sounds. It is as easy, it's as simple as bending your knee, acknowledging that He is Lord, and coming to faith in Him and Him alone. Not, this out here, and, well, you need to blah blah blah. No, it's a vertical thing. It's a vertical thing, and this really well. But when when you're in the thick of it like this, I mean, I was just like, my heart is going out to this guy, and I'm like, man, like, what can I say? What can I do? I asked him what I can do, how I could pray, and so I did pray for him before we got off the phone. But my prayer for him is that he would just come to know, and this is for all these guys that are listening who are like, yeah, I don't need Jesus. I've already been there, done that. I know all about that, and you guys are a bunch of hypocrites. I would just say that, hey, you know what? It's kind of like, just do the work yourself. Don't worry about everybody else. Do the work yourself right now to open your heart. Ask God to help you open your heart. Maybe He's bringing you to your knees so that your heart can be opened, and you can be humbled in His sight, and you can just be brought to your knees, maybe literally, maybe financially, maybe spiritually, so that He can do a work in you. And that's what I don't know. I mean, I know that for me, my story, it was that a certain way, kind of like that, a parallel story like that. But there isn't anything that He can't do. I mean, look it
No,
up. Here,
yeah, we're all sinners, and there is no perfect person. And so to all of you guys and gals out there that may think, okay, well, Jesus may be for you, but maybe Jesus isn't for me. Jesus loves you whether you acknowledge Him or not, and He's here for all of us. We're all equals. We're all sinners. We're all His children. And all I have to say is that prayer works, and don't ever give up. Don't ever give up. Don't ever think God's given up on you, because it feels like God's given up on you. Always be grateful and thankful for the trials and tribulations, because why? Because that means better times are coming. It can't stay the same forever. It's the law of physics. I mean, it can't stay bad forever. It's going to get better, and it
yeah,
will. And you have to have faith. And faith is believing in those things that you cannot see, which is it getting better.
that's such a hard thing to do, right? It's like we're so
It
used to, like,
is.
seeing. I want to see with my own eyes, and I want to, well, I'm looking on the internet, and I'm
I
looking,
ain't got nothing here.
and I'm looking everywhere, and I want to see, and it's like, well, there are things that are going on that you don't see, things that are going on in the spirit realm, where God's doing a work in us, and He's also fighting the enemy that you don't see all that, but it's going on. It's a major war going on. Have you been able to see some of the things that we've seen recently in
Yeah,
the news?
And the conversations that God hears that we don't.
Yeah, I mean, his wisdom is beyond all understanding. And that's where that's why sometimes I'll put in, I'll post something on the social media, and I've got some great new things that are happening in social media that we're not going to be able to get into all that today. But I'll post some things on social media, and it's like, just like, just a verse or two of God's word, and it's just, it's like there is so much going on that we don't see. Okay, so let's just like get that out there. We know it's happening. It's moving, and is it moving at the same pace it was? It feels like it's kind of moving faster than it was. It's like, I mean, before November 5th, I was like, oh boy, like stuff is moving quick, and like, is it moving that fast still? I don't know. I mean, maybe it is. Maybe it's moving faster. I don't know. But there's a lot of things going on. A lot of things going on. Some good things, and also some really heartbreaking things. But this is life, right? This is part of what life is. And so, our response to it, is I think needs to be, loving our neighbor. And that's what this channel's trying to do, and I really appreciate you, Jill, because, you're coming on here, you're sharing some stuff. You are so passionate about God's people and just loving your neighbor. And, I mean, our family's from the South, and, it's like, you know, just to make this really funny for a second, like in the South, I mean, because I've worked and lived in the Las Vegas, Nevada area. And, I mean, it's like everybody couldn't be more rude. It's like Southern California there. And if you guys are in California, then sorry, but I've got a bag on California a little bit. But, you come out east, we're out here on the east side of the country now. And, you come back this way, and, like where I live now, like people would honk or something like that, that not in the South. I mean, you might get a honk if somebody's been sitting there at the stoplight for 2 minutes, like, hey, is there a problem?
Yeah.
There's got to be something going on. Do you need help? No, it's actually, that's how it is, right? I mean, everybody's like, no, just come on in, just go ahead, you go ahead. And everybody's so friendly, and, like, no, it's okay, and everybody's just, you get around. Even in, busy cities and stuff like that. I mean, I don't know if they do that in Texas, like where you're at, but they do.
Everyone is so nice. They really are. I mean, everyone is so nice. Now, of course, you have your exceptions everywhere, but in the, it's
Yeah.
I, Tennessee and Texas are so much alike, and it goes all the way back to the Alamo, where Davy Crockett came over and helped.
Yeah.
It's it's
Yeah.
literally like that today. I mean, it's so the same. Southern.
Well, there is. I kind of wanted to take this back to to like our roots a little bit, and like,
Do it.
sometimes the isolation feels really, really harsh, and it's really it makes me sad when I feel like family wise, there's really no friendly, there's no friendlies, like I'm gonna take friendly fire if I get around, or like, it's not so much that these days.
Yeah. All I know is that I really miss the days where we got together more.
Yeah, yeah, we had some family reunions, right? We had those,
Yes.
and we can do that again. And I think one of the things, this is good, one of the things we need to do more of, and I'll tell you what, because more of hospitality. Okay, Romans 12 calls us to, we need to be given to hospitality, and that is, what is that? What is hospitality? I mean, I think there's a lot of people, even, Bible believing Christians, that don't even know what hospitality is anymore. Hospitality is, like inviting people into our home. and breaking bread with them, sharing a meal, and sharing who we are with them. You know, like I will tell you, I just saw a movie, okay, and then I'm going to let you say some things, and I don't know how much time you have, but I'm going on a roll here.
I'm good.
Um, I just saw a movie, and I love this movie, Bonhoeffer. Okay, it's a Christian based movie. Just been put out here in the United States by Angel Studios. Bonhoeffer is a story about a pastor from Germany who went into training in a seminary in the United States, and then he went back to Germany, and he right as Adolf Hitler was going and doing his thing over there, and it was just, I mean, to tell you, you need to see this movie. And I'm not pumping the movie
I
because of,
can't wait.
but one of the things I love about this movie is the when he's in the seminary, and his like buddy, his buddy is this black guy, okay, and this black guy takes him into the heart of Harlem, okay, and he takes him into a beautiful like little jazz club in Harlem, and
Oh.
here's this whitest of white dude, German, guy, and he's in there, and I can't tell you anymore. I can't tell you. I'll ruin it. I'll ruin it if I'd say anything else. But
Well, all I can
I,
say is I love jazz, I love Memphis, Beale Street Blues, so yeah, I can't wait to see it. That was a great teaser.
well, so the point, what was the point of all that? So I mean, actually, the point of what I was trying to say is that, that was great, but he actually breaks bread, okay, and that's the point. This like, you just never know. The love of Christ is shown in the moment when you share a meal with somebody else, somebody who doesn't like, who would do that? Like, for example, let's say I don't know you. Let's just say I don't know you, Jill, and you invite me to your home, and I'm like, I don't know her. I've never been here before. Okay, well, you're gonna feed me. Okay, I'm here. I'm good. I'm good with that. And then Jill's like pouring it on, and would you like this? And just being herself, right? That is just the love. I just can't tell you how powerful that is. It's a great thing. And so my encouragement is for those people who say we're Christian, let's actually invite those people into our home and let's break bread with them.
That's so true. And see, and that's our family. That's what our family, my grandmother that I'm named after, she loved you with food. And when you came over, she had a freezer, and I think that's all she did was sit around and cook. And she would pull out homemade salsa, homemade candy, this, that, and the other. And I'm just like, she had all that in her freezer already. That is so cool. And she loved it. She was such a great cook that she loved watching people be in awe of her. And, and to this day, my husband, he tries to come in the kitchen and help cook a little bit. And I, to this day, use her sayings. And I can remember being in the kitchen with her, and I would open the oven door to look at something, and she'd say, "If you're looking, you're not cooking." And so now when my husband comes and he cracks that oven, I can't stop saying it.
If you're looking, you're not cooking.
That's right, 'cause you're letting the heat out.
Oh my gosh.
So,
Did you guys have any those wooden cook stoves? Did anybody ever have one of those?
well,
Remember the wooden cook stoves?
my not that, not, at least not in my family. Now, we always did the outside smokers, so we would, gosh, we would do Boston butts, we've done ribs, we've done whole hogs. Gosh, my daddy fried alligator, and it was so funny because my grandson, he was probably 4, I believe, the first time he tasted alligator, and it was fried in little nuggets. And he's 4. He ate a little piece. He said, "I feel like a man now," because he ate alligator. And I was like, "This is just so." But it's those little moments. My dad being the big sportsman. He wanted him to try. What bass fish was versus catfish. Versus deer versus squirrel versus frog legs versus dove. I mean, they were we hunted, and it's just not, when I was going through it, I used to think, oh, I wish I could just go to the mall and go shopping for clothes, and now I look back on it, and it's just beautiful the how simple they were, and the traditions that had been taught for generations that
Yeah.
we're still teaching.
Well, it, and this is there's one other part about this family connection thing that I wanted to bring up, and it has to do with God's family too, and that is that you know and the reason I bring this up is because of my friend I just talked to. Sometimes the isolation and the loneliness and the depression that goes with all that is so real. It's just, and I walked through that before I was married and stuff. I can't tell you how many times I remember Christmases where I was alone. Um,
Me too. I was single for years, and until you've woke up by yourself on Christmas morning and gone to bed by yourself on Christmas night, it's a different level of loneliness. C-
it
Please
is,
continue.
it is. Well, I mean, and I mean, I would sign up to work Christmas because I knew what I'd be doing if I didn't. And I wanted to work it. I wanted to do a trade for somebody who had a family that could do that, or I wanted to, I would sign up for overtime or something like that. I would do that because it just was painful. It was painful sometimes when I didn't have the family that I had always dreamed of, and I didn't have peace in my heart, and I didn't know. And so, so the adoption part of this, and this kind of, I know I'm going a different direction with it, but the part about, having faith and all that stuff, there's so much, the spectrum of all of it is so much bigger than you actually can think about, because your faith is part of it, and it's an important part, right? But, well, how do you grow your faith? Well, you grow your faith not by yourself, but by other people in loving you and inviting you into their home and doing hospitality. But also, by
Fellowship with other
well,
Christians.
fellowship with other Christians, yes, but by kind of like just being uh, being open to the idea, okay, that it's a family, okay, and there's a lot of people that don't have a family, and I'm talking about people who are first responders. I'm talking about vets. I'm talking about people who were adopted, who didn't came through the foster care system. I have 2 kids that came through the foster care system, and we adopted both of them. And this the important part about that is that whether or not they came from a bad background or this or that or hard place or whatever, and I'm talking about my kids that were that way when I bought them. No, I didn't buy my kids. When I got them, um, or if it's like kids who come from a hard place, or if it's like adults whose family has, for some reason, their distance, they're estranged from their family. They're, for whatever reason, they're not connecting with them, or they have died. They're no longer able to to be around them or talk to them, even if they wanted to. this is where the juice is for me, and that I love this, and that is that I was adopted into the family of God, and that's no thing that I did to earn that. I didn't. I mean, it's like have to remember that I need to be thankful for it, because it's not a small thing. It's actually a big, huge, like life changing thing. But I'm thankful for and I can express thanks. And this is where I'm going with that friend of mine that I was talking to. He was telling me that all these things that are going bad and everything. And meanwhile, he's driving to his friend's house, and he's about to have Thanksgiving dinner with this guy who he mentored as a long time ago. And this guy had just got off 3 days of work, right, on Thanksgiving. Well, he comes in and he's telling me all about this, and I'm thinking, okay, so you have something to be thankful for. I'm thinking in my head, you have something to be thankful for. But, like the family of God, that personal relationship with Jesus is there for you. He's calling you. He's wanting you to answer his call. He's bringing you to your knees, not for no reason. It is what it is, not for no reason. It is what it is for a very specific and unique reason. It's there. He loves you. He does. And he wants you in his family. But it is a family. It is a family. And like, he will not forsake us. There's many people in this earth who we cannot depend on, who will fail us, who are sinners, and they will not repent, all that kind of thing, right? But Jesus won't. Jesus will not give up on us, and he doesn't ever change. His word never changes. And so if we can remember that I don't have, because I remember this, and my come to Jesus meeting with Jesus, was at Christmas. And I've struggled with Christmas since then and lots before that. But my come to Jesus meeting with him was driving 12 hours from my mom's house in Wyoming back to the Las Vegas Valley. And I drove all that way so that I could get to church on time for the Christmas Eve ceremony. And
Wow.
by the time I got there, I was like, I'm going to be there. I'm going to be there. I don't know why I have to be there, but I've got to be there. So I made it. I made it in with about 2 minutes of time to spare. And I got there, and I was sitting there, and I could not stop the tears coming down. I just couldn't stop. I could not stop. It was the most amazing Christmas Eve. And there was other people around, and they didn't really know what was going on. I mean, they're like, hey, how you doing? I mean, it was a mega church, right? Everybody's like, hey, all right, good job, Merry Christmas, and they're like, like strapping on my seatbelt, like, wow, this is like Jesus, or what are you doing in my heart right now? Like my Holy Spirit is taking me to another level, and I just am like, like how does this go? I don't know,
You
but
just hold on for the ride.
I was there. And so I felt like that night I came into the family of the Lord. And it's like any other family. It's like not everybody I'm going to get along with, and not everything's going to be roses and unicorns and rainbows after that either, right? But I love that. I love that the family of God is like an amazing gift that we're given that we can be thankful for, and I think we need to remember that in the light of all these things that are going on in the world today, is that there is very few beacons of hope. And in my view, there's only one hope. What do you have to
And
say about all
well, all I have to say is my Christian friends, I value their weight is like the same as gold to me, because when you are having a bad day and your mind isn't right, you can do better, you can do better, but you're losing that battle. And so it can be something as simple as a text from a friend. It can be you doing something kind for someone else. you know I highly recommend when you are at your lowest, do something kind for someone else when you feel like that's the last thing I want to do. I don't even know why you're suggesting that, because that is not, I'm not going to have a happy heart, and I'm telling you, you will get, God works through that. You take that negative and you say, okay, I'm gonna do something nice. Okay, my neighbor's trash can, it's windy today and it's blowing halfway down the street. I'm gonna go get it for them and just wheel it and put it in front of their, garage for them, just so they don't have to do that when they get home. Something as small as that, just do something kind for someone. And doing something kind for someone when you are just feeling like, or sad, or can't pull yourself up by your bootstraps, do something kind, because God honors that. Just like He does a woman in a congregation that doesn't have a dollar in her billfold, but she puts 75 cents in the offering plate. God honors that 75 cents by that woman that only had a dollar more than He does $20 from the guy that had a roll of them in his wallet. It's that same thing. And when you're trying and struggling, God acknowledges that.
Yeah.
He just
Yeah. Oh,
does. It
it's
it
well said.
works.
Well said.
Yep.
um, so I've we talked about a lot of cool stuff here, and I don't know, we're an hour and 10 into this, but I kind of wanted to like sort of like head towards, not head towards the exit, but I want to be respectful of your time, and I really enjoy our conversation,
Well,
but
I want to make one real quick suggestion. Your friend that worked, I have no idea who his name is, and I have no idea who he is, but I do believe in the power of prayer. And so I wanted to, if we could just together say a quick prayer for him, to help encourage him, to help him get through this, to help him see that this isn't where he's stuck forever.
yeah, yeah. How about this, Jill? How about you? And and just so you know, I would like to kind of circle back around and maybe kind of have a couple more things that we can discuss after this. But let's do that. Let's do that. And how about if you open up in prayer and then I'll close us in prayer? Does that work?
That sounds beautiful. Dear Heavenly Father, just thank you today for this podcast, Lord, and thank you for the friend in need that, Lord, that he's just come before you now. And I pray, Lord, that you just touch his heart and open his mind, Lord, to faith and to believing in that we all cannot see. Because, Lord, without you, none of us can accomplish anything. And I just know that without your grace, there is no glory.
So Lord, I thank you for Jill and her prayers, and Lord, I pray for my friend who's going through these things right now and at a low point. And Lord, I just lift him up to you, and Lord, that you would work your Holy Spirit in his heart, that he would know that you are God and that we are not. And what a relief that is, that you get to be God and we don't have to. Lord, it's so simple, but it's not easy. Lord, I just pray that you would help us as a people, and I pray that you would help him to come to understanding that these things can be, they're these things are not understood easily, and the timing of stuff is the worst sometimes, and our physical bodies can be, racked with pain, and our job outlooks look horrible, and all of these trials can be, but we're told that it's going to be that way. We know it's going to be that way. And Lord, I just pray that you would bring him through this, help him, give him some hope, let him be who he is, and that you would do a work in his heart, that he would be transformed by the work of your Holy Spirit. Lord, I pray these things in your Son Jesus' name. And we all said, Amen.
Amen.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
this too shall pass.
Yes. Yeah. Very good. Very good. That's absolutely true. Yeah. Um, so, uh, is there any questions you want to ask me? Because I've been asking, I think I've been asking questions. Anything that
Well, um, let's see.
you don't have
If
to, I'm kind of putting you on the spot.
Yeah, no, I'm curious to see if what would you say is the number one thing that's helped you in your, like, when you're really struggling. You know what I'm talking about. When we all have those moments, what is something that really helps you?
Well, number one, I'm kind of a communicator, and number one, my big thing, my big thing is I need to talk about stuff, and I talk about it with my wife. And when she's able to talk to me, sometimes I mean I'm like like my kids, I'm like, hey, you know what? I need to talk to mom. Mom and dad need to go talk, and and she's like in the absolute middle of something, and she's not really ready to you know peel off and go over here with dad and have a conversation. But I'm like, I'm not one of those people that can sweep stuff under the rug, and I'm not afraid of conflict either. But what I do find is it's best if I can talk with her and sort of like take some steam off. And she's learned through the years to kind of help me, you know, do those things. And she can speak some truth when nobody else might be able to get through the hard crust. And so communication for me is kind of a big one. But also when if I'm like, if it's building and I'm just seeing red, she's like she's like she's told me, no, you can't, no, that's not going to work here. So you just go and do what you got to do. Maybe go to the gym, maybe go for a walk, take the dogs out, and get some fresh air, get some circulation, get some stuff going, and that can help you think better. uh, sometimes sometimes it's simple as food. I haven't eaten, or I need to I just need to actually take care of myself. um, so taking care of myself, whether it be good food or some exercise. I mean, I'm not, this ain't my first rodeo, so I'm pretty much like over the hill with a lot of people's perspective. The young guys, they'll be like, oh man, that guy's old. But I still like to swim, and I like to play ice hockey and stuff. And so I find that if I can play ice hockey once a week, man, that really helps me. But kind of, I think knowing yourself and knowing where your red line is really helpful, because then you're going like, hey, I am in the yellow and I am headed for red and I'm going 100 miles an hour. And I don't think I can stop. I need to get off this train and get myself taken care of. I think knowing yourself and stuff like that's helpful. But I've also been at a place before where it's been like, like I can't see out of this rut. I cannot see up and out of it because it's so it's so dark. And that's the kind of circle back to what you said earlier. Is like, when you are so stuck, just get out there, and even if you don't think you can, go help somebody, go serve somebody else.
Yeah, if I have, and I know this sounds silly, but pick up a garbage bag and go pick up trash in your neighborhood. Just walk up and down the street. That way you don't have to talk to anybody. You don't have to let anybody know that you're aggravated, because sometimes that's the last thing you want to do is talk to anybody. Sometimes you just want, just let me work this out in here.
Sure.
And so, yeah, just doing something kind.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter what it is.
Yeah. Yeah. That's right. Yeah. It really doesn't matter what it is. And it can be a complete stranger too.
It can. And, sometimes that's the best because, usually they're the most grateful because it's so seldom that people will, you know, I can remember being at Costco, and this is so simple, but I had broke my shoulder, I'd slipped and fallen, and I had a screw in it, and I was just finally out of my gear and looking normal again. And I was loading water into my trunk, and I was like, I really don't need to lift this, water. And here comes this man up out, and he just said, I need a buggy, and all you have in it is water. He said, "Can I load that buggy of what your water into your trunk for you, and I'll take that buggy for you?" And I was like, "You just read my mind."
Yeah.
And so, it's just funny how things work, and it's it's so nice to be on the receiving end, and it's so nice to give, and I've been on both, and all I can say is never underestimate it because if you're a woman and you pass another woman and you think, man, I like those shoes, or oh, I like the way that scarf looks with that jacket. There's been so many times that I'll say, I love that shirt, or I love those shoes, or I love those boots, or I love that purse. And to a woman, that's everything. They're just like,
Really.
thank you.
Yeah.
You can tell. And, if it's just a compliment,
Yeah.
compliment people. There's
Yeah.
just not enough of that. And sometimes it's just, it doesn't cost anything to be nice. It
Wow.
doesn't cost anything to be kind.
No, it doesn't. That's wisdom right there. That's wisdom. Yeah. 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 I just I really appreciate I really appreciate that perspective, and I know other people will too. And the thing is, I remember we talked about our grandma, our great grandmother, you know
Yes.
Eula, and she went through some real trials and adversity. I mean, her husband was died, and she had, what was it, 4 kids or 5 kids?
4 kids.
She had 4 kids that she had to raise by herself, and she she was the kindest, gentlest, most loving person.
And
I
funny.
Oh my goodness. Oh, she had a great sense of humor. She laughed, and yeah, I just they just don't make them like that anymore. They just don't. You
And
know.
you would never know that she had lost a husband and she had lost, so much and
Yeah.
had so little, and she was always so grateful. And one of the funniest things is, okay, she was all Choctaw, and I can remember visiting her on the reservation and her not having a bathroom in her house, and just small things. And I remember her making flatbread for my brother and I for the first time, and we had never had it, because we were from Tennessee. We had pancakes or waffles, and so we were
Yeah.
like flatbread. But of course, we love to eat, so she made it for us, and we were like, "Well, what do we put on it?" And so she was like, "Well, you can put anything on it, And so we pull out butter and pancake syrup because that's all we know to put on it. And I'll never forget her looking at us. She shook her head and she was like, my Choctaw great grandchildren, she said, no one in our family has ever put pancake syrup on flatbread. You guys are the first. And we were like, yay. And she was like, no.
Oh my
But
goodness.
she made everything fun. She just, no matter how out of touch with reality of the lesson we were learning. But I'll never forget, yeah, she was like, Mrs. Butterworth, you want that for what?
Yeah. Yeah.
It was really good.
Yeah. I bet it was. Yeah. She had the best flatbread around. Oh my
Yeah, it
word.
was, but it's just
Yeah.
it's precious memories. And yeah, there's nothing like, and I can remember being little, and to this day I still buy my grandchildren moccasins, and they
Oh,
love them because all this, this little Disney little Indian girl cartoon. I can't even think of her name, I'm sorry to say, but my granddaughters love her. They love the archery. They're just so into the moccasins. And I can remember being a little girl and asking Eula, which was our great grandmother, do you have moccasins? And she was, and here I am, and she's just like, and I'm like, no, I'm serious. Do you have moccasins? You're real Indian and you have to have moccasins.
right.
And so, and so she was like, okay. And I'll never forget, she went to her closet and she pulls out this little old, I mean, they were, of course, not small, they were adult size, but this little pair of worn moccasins. And I can remember holding them in my hands and just looking at her with just like I was holding gold, because I just couldn't believe I was holding a pair of real moccasins. And, you know,
Yeah.
that sounds so silly now. And to this day, I wear brown and black moccasins in the wintertime. I wear them all the time and I just love it. Why? Because she had them. It's
Wow.
just that
See,
simple.
I did not know that about her, and if I'd have known that she had moccasins, I would have wanted to see them too. Because we're
Yeah,
kids. It's like I want to see that too. I didn't never saw that.
yeah,
So
yeah, and she had already had them promised to Sharon. I think you remember who Sharon was.
yeah.
I believe it was Sharon that ended up with them, but I
Oh
never
dear.
asked. Yeah, I didn't ask for them, but I think she could tell by the bewilderment in my eyes that I wanted them.
Okay. Phew. Oh my goodness. Well,
but but it was just special. It
yeah.
was just special.
Yeah. Yeah. No, it's so great to circle back with and remember family, remember that we have connection, that we remember that we have um, a place, that where we can go and we can talk to each other, and I want to just encourage the anybody who's out there that if they want to contact us, and if there's any ladies out there that have a story that they want to share with Jill, I can put you in touch with Jill. You can just contact us
Yes,
at
please.
I'll put this little banner up there again, and so they can see that our what our email is. It's trauma fitness, and then it has those at proton.me. So, and I would be happy to share that email with her. You can contact her, and maybe she's. I think you're up for that. I don't know. It sounds like you would be.
I'm definitely up for that. And all I know is that, there's been a lot of things that have happened to a lot of people. And I think the more that we share and we share experiences, share ways to protect ourselves, and just always know that you're not alone and that I know I'm here to reach out to if anybody ever needs me. I feel like, you are as well. And, PTSD is real. And,
Yeah.
you know, anything, if I can do anything to help anyone, I would be so grateful to be able to do that.
Well, I have a feeling that this is not going to be your last time on the show here. We're gonna we, we might be a regular appearance here.
Yeah.
We're gonna have to talk about this. But any final thoughts of anything you want to like kind of circle back
I'm
on?
just,
Anything you want to put out
I'm
there?
I am just honored to be part of any program for PTSD. First responders, military, anyone who's had trauma. I just think everyone, we're all human beings. We all have limits. We all need help at one time or another, or guidance. And I just think there's nothing better to help someone than someone that's been through it. And so I think this community of helping each other is so important. And I just want to be a part of it and I want to make a difference. And, if there's anything that I can do that's going to help one person out there, I want to do it.
Well, that is so great. That is really great. And so I've got the thing up there. We've got the email. People can contact us, and I will forward anything offered to Jill that she needs to see or communicate with. Obviously, you've got the email. Um, I just kind of wanted to encourage anybody who's suffering in silence, to kind of reach out. Reach out. There's also a number, we have in some other videos that we've done. I don't have that number. Let's see, maybe I do. The number for them to call if they need like a crisis line number that they can call. I can get that for you right here. So yeah, so we have a. Well, so I don't have a number for veterans. Okay, the number that I have is only for.
I'll have it for next time because I don't have it on hand at the moment and I'm ashamed that I don't, but I can definitely have one because
Okay.
there is one and I have many American Patriot friends that are very interested in helping as well.
Okay. So the IAFF call center is the 855-900-8437. That's the number there if they want to call that. Those are for IAFF members. 855-900-8437 if they're going through a crisis time right now. This has been great, Jill. Thank you so much for
I
being
just,
here.
and thank you. And, Lord willing, we've, reached someone today, made somebody think twice. And, just most importantly, guys, you're not alone.
Yeah. Yeah, you are not alone. Even when it looks like you are. You're
That's
not
right.
alone. You're not alone. Yeah.
That's right.
So good. So good. All right, Jill. Thank you so much. I'm gonna go ahead and we're gonna sign off here.
All right. Well, thank you for having me, and I so enjoyed it.
Yeah, me too. Me too.
We'll do it again.